It's time now for our second panel discussion about creating a collaborative environment at work.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion. We're talking about how to create a collaborative environment at work. I'm Brittaney Kiefer. I'm Campaign's Creativity and Culture Editor, and I'm going to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves as well.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Nadine Young from Starcom. I'm Starcom CEO. This is a topic very close to my heart, so I'm really excited to be here. I've worked in media agencies for 20 plus years, and I guess my thing is sort of building teams. So excited for the conversation, and thank you for inviting me.
Hi everyone. I'm Sarah Jenkins. I'm Managing Director at Saatchi and Saatchi. Also been doing this ever such a long time, 20 plus years. And although it's been a tough 12, 18 months because of everything that's happening, I'm actually excited about where the industry is going. I think it's going to come out of this better and sharper and braver and kinder.
Hi, I'm Rania Robinson. I'm Chief Exec of Quiet Storm and also Director of Create Not Hate, which is a program that's aimed at bringing in people, underrepresented people into our industry. I'm really excited to be talking about this with my fellow panelists. I think for us, collaboration is critical in terms of getting a job well done. We are an industry that really relies heavily on kind of people working well together to get to great results. So for me, collaboration is absolutely kind of at the heart of good work and good business. So yeah, great subject to be covering off.
Well, maybe it'd be useful to start with what we all mean by the word collaboration. I think people tend to think of it as like getting together, brainstorming, putting Post-it notes on a wall. Like Nadine, what do you think of when you say collaboration?
I think you're exactly right. As soon as someone says, let's collaborate, you imagine everyone's just jumping on endless Zoom calls to just have brainstorm after brainstorm. And that's kind of my idea of health, if I'm honest. Like, not a lot of people, not everyone wants to work that way. So to me, collaboration is more about how an organization can be really flexible to allow every individual to perform at their best. So a lot of people are actually, would prefer to do their own creative thinking on their own before they get thrown into a group. And a lot of people thrive on being in groups. So it matters less how you do it and more that you make room for everyone to do it in their own way, I think.
What about you, Sarah?
Well, I think BBH have got it written on a wall in their office, which is none of us is as smart as all of us. And it's just so true. And I think that's what collaboration is. That's the genesis of great collaboration. It's when you allow and enable that collision of intelligence and creativity and skills. And ultimately, when you do that well, you're going to end up with a great product or output.
Yeah, I really wanted to just echo Sarah's point, really. I think for me, collaboration is about a group of people, often with different perspectives, different maybe roles, remits, all working towards a common goal. And whether that's in a task or a very specific moment in time, or whether it's more towards a longer term vision, purpose, that's for me what collaboration means. It's that everybody's working towards the same goal and bringing their kind of perspective that delivers a much better result.
I think the end goal thing actually is really important, because without everyone being crystal clear on what you're trying to achieve, and whether it's to answer a specific brief or whether it's a bigger picture, what is your company goal? If people aren't all working to the same end, collaboration could end up just being a lot of talk and a lot of swirl with everyone trying to be nice and make sure everyone feels heard, but you're not actually moving forward. So one of the most important things to me is actually making sure that everything is very action focused and a really clear outcome at the end.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that we're talking about this topic now in the third lockdown in the UK. And I think when it started, we probably all thought we'll be in this situation for a handful of weeks or a few months, and then we'll be back to the office. Some of us tried to get back to the office for a time, but how do you continue to collaborate and create that kind of environment remotely when you can't be with your team in person? And is there anything that you've learned maybe from doing this in 2020 that you're now taking into this year? Rania, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps if you had a really, really strong set of values, clear vision, and strong culture before all of this happened, because what you've got is a bunch of people that are kind of working individually but also collectively with a really, really clear sense of values, vision, purpose, all the things we're talking about, which is the kind of end sort of desired end goal. And, you know, if you're a kind of a mature team, it helps as well. But, you know, having said that, we have had a couple of new people join, and we made some mistakes early on with some newbies, but we learned from that. But I think what's really important is creating opportunities where people can feel like they're in the trenches together a bit. And that's what you have in the real world, I think. I mean, you kind of get those moments in time where it's group collective power during very, very intense periods, which I think has been the big difference with the way we're working now, which is actually a bit more kind of task-led and scheduled and linear. So just finding opportunities to create those moments where it's not, you know, specific to a task in that moment, and it's just creating an experience of being in it together and in the trenches together. So, you know, we do things like inspiration sessions where people are just sharing ideas and thoughts and inspirations, that things that have just come to them or they've seen, or so you're just, it's not related to a particular task, but it's just a moment to share and be inspired and just talk about things that are sort of out of scope for the day or for the week or the month. Or so I think things like that, trying to recreate those moments.
And is that working well in an environment like Zoom? Like, does it kind of encourage interaction from people?
Yeah, well, what we found is it creates discussion that isn't part of the day-to-day, because I think this way of working is very day-to-day, getting things done, as opposed to those moments that you have when you sit, you know, on the sofas and have lunch and just talk about stuff, or the moment in the kitchen when you're just kind of checking in on someone's weekend, or, you know, all those little moments that are outside of core business. They're the things that aren't happening, I don't think, at the moment, is those moments outside core business. It's just core business. Yeah. So we're trying to create those moments outside of core business, whether it's sharing ideas or whether it's, you know, live. We've done live drawing classes where, you know, just giving people an opportunity to be creative that is, you know, that isn't sort of part of the day job, and just, you know, and obviously the sort of the Zoom drinks and things like that. But we're just sort of trying to think of those moments in real life and trying to recreate them virtually in some way. They're not the same. I don't think we can pretend they're the same as the real thing, but it just takes you out of day-to-day core business, which I think.
You have to be so much more deliberate about everything because it doesn't happen organically. So yeah, exactly, the whole, you know, just bump into someone while you're making coffee in the kitchen sort of thing. And we've done similar things, and we've actually had, you know, coffee roulettes, and we've had cuppa catch-ups and things, you know, just to make sure that we're scheduling those times to make sure they happen. But yeah, I mean, it isn't the same, but I think it does at least crystallize what you want, what you value about your culture. Because what's kind of interesting actually is when culture really should stand despite geography and despite any curveballs being thrown at you, right? So it shouldn't be reliant on the ping pong table, and it shouldn't be reliant on, you know, the cool beanbags. And it's not that sort of, that isn't culture. To me, culture is what stands when all of that stuff is taken away, as it has so rudely been taken away. So, you know, if what matters in the end is looking after your people, if what matters is, you know, maximizing creativity, then you just have to be incredibly deliberate about how you go about sort of replicating that in this world.
Yeah, I guess, like, I'm so emphatically agreeing with everything that you're saying. And culture is that connective tissue. Just, it solves so many of our problems. And it's when that's in place, you then drop down at a project level or a task level. And then I think where collaboration can get properly powered up in the remote world is actually being unbelievably structured with goals, as we've talked about, but also working within a framework. And we talk a lot about full funnel selling, so we work within that as one of our key frameworks, because you almost need the rigidity of that and those guardrails to allow us to go off and do things independently of each other. And then when we come back, whether that's as an agency or as a cross-agency group or a cross-agency client group, you're all working within those guardrails. So completely agree on culture. A really tough, robust framework is critically important. And I think the last thing is the gift of time. Yeah. It was like we were time crunched before all this. Now time is such an amazing solve for so many things, and it's making sure that there is the time factored in on any given project, but also giving people the time on their own to get the job done. So one of the things on a practical level, which has been transformative, so we've introduced Saatchi timeouts, played around with the time, but now we've settled on 12:30 till 2 and 6 to 7, no meetings. And that has transformed our ability to be productive and actually more collaborative when we are together by actually refusing to have meetings at certain times in the day. So on a practical level, big fan of the Saatchi timeout.
Yeah, I'm hearing about that more often. Like Wonderhood Studios published a piece on Campaign recently about by Aidan McClure, their creative leader, saying agencies should run more like factories. So they have really set times they've set in place for their teams to, this is, in this time, no meetings, in this time, no emails after whatever hour. So it's kind of counterintuitive, like this very structured day, he argues, might actually free up these creative moments. And I am interested in how you're creating that work, how you're actually making creativity happen and making sure that all voices are heard, whether they feel comfortable speaking up on a Zoom call or not. How is that working out?
I think that's really something that people struggle with, actually, because if you think how hard it is for someone who is maybe quite junior or just a bit of an introvert and just not that confident to speak up in a room full of people physically, where you can judge when there's going to be a pause and you can judge who's going to smile at you and you can judge things so much. I mean, like, you just can't do it on Zoom. It's almost impossible to know what the mood is and to know when's the right time to jump in. I have a lot of sort of empathy with. I used to be like that, so I'm very sort of aware and empathetic to people who are sort of the introvert who find it quite hard to speak up in a room. We've tried to buddy people up. So we have something that we have going on at Starcom, which I think is going down really well with the teams, is an initiative that we call Future Leaders, where we bring sort of our junior mid-level talent into our leadership team meetings so that they can just see how an agency runs, right? So they kind of get a bit of a fast track view on management and what's all the stuff that we really talk about that we don't want anyone to hear about, which is really nothing. So it's very transparent and open. But conscious that they might be very intimidated by that sort of group of people, we pair them up with a buddy who will take them through the agenda beforehand, who will be their ally on the call, who will follow up with them afterwards. And we've found that people feel pretty safe speaking up. So I think buddying, preparing people in advance, laying down expectations. And actually, one really good tip that I stole off a client is where you just have an understanding that at the end of any proposal or discussion, the most junior person speaks first. So they are prepared and they know it's coming and they have complete freedom to say whatever they want because it's expected. So that also works really well.
I think just to add to that, the point you made earlier, Nadine, about being very deliberate about everything, I think that's again, you have to be even more deliberate about creating opportunities for people to have a voice and get used to it. It's like anything, isn't it? The more you do it, the more comfortable you feel with it, and the more you get positive response or affirmation, the more you continue to grow that kind of confidence to speak up. And I think early on in a lot of our careers, we've all felt like that, where you kind of got a great idea, but you don't want to say it, and then someone else says it, and you're like, God damn it,
yes,
I said it.
Yes, not just
we've been there, haven't we? So what we do again, it's like by creating like opportunities where we invite people to share something, anything that they feel comfortable with, that inspires them, that makes them kind of anything at all. I think it's just creating opportunities for people just to be used to standing up and sharing an idea or a thought or an opinion in front of their peers. And actually sometimes that can be more intimidating than anyone else, but I think it's just, you just get used to it. And then also just inviting people in to have a point of view as well. What I find is I have to ask people, I'll say, look, what do you think? Or, and pull people into the conversation. So just again, so they feel like they've got permission to have a point of view, and making that feel very safe as well. And, so not being critical of, or of any opinion is a valid opinion and point of view.
Yeah, and I do wonder if something that I definitely worry about, and the leadership team at Saatchi talk a lot about, it's not just the lack of support or involvement junior people may feel on Zoom calls, because it's hard to sort of give your opinion and step up. I do worry about how hard it must be just to work generally when you don't have the osmosis of learning, where you can't just lean across the desk and say to your AD, why are we doing that? Or how do I find the time code? In truth, the power of collaboration is what you can do when you're not on the Zoom. And when you're not on the Zoom, who do you ask for? Where do you get the support from? So I think as an industry, anything we can do and learn from each other for how we power up that junior sort of 5, 6, 7 years in, those juniors must be finding it harder than we can probably imagine at our level within the industry.
Even new joiners, people who have just never met their teams in real life at all. I mean, that's something that I think people have got a lot more deliberate about. What is your onboarding approach, and how can you make someone feel, I mean, it's awkward enough when you're in the office, right? Day one of a job, and you're kind of, I don't know, my email's not working, I don't know what to do. And, and so we've got to be so much more careful about that now. It's really tough. It's very tough for people. I think also one of the things that's worked well is having, when people are new, is having standing check-ins like every single day, twice a day even. So 11 o'clock every day, 4 o'clock every day, I'm yours. Let's just jump on for 20 minutes and just see what you've been doing, who you've met, those sorts of things, so that they never feel left in a sea of trying to figure this out on my own.
Yeah. I mean, Brittaney, you're not going to be able to shut us up, are you?
I know, we could go for it.
No, I mean,
there's parental leave and people coming back from maternity leave. I think, all these things, the best practice, the more we can share, the better.
I think we are almost out of time. If there's, I think a good way to end was maybe if each of you just share kind of like one quick tip that's going to help you collaborate in 2021. Something, whether it's like the meetings that you're having, or limits on Zoom calls, like something that you want to take into this year.
I think probably we've spent so much time thinking about this that maybe all the immediate solutions have hopefully been implemented by now. But I think what's really important is to keep listening to what people need, and then to be really like I said, to be really deliberate about what you're doing to address those needs, because they'll keep changing and moods keep changing. And by the way, it's all going to change if we can sort of go back into the office, because it will be harder with some people in, some people at home. That's a whole new challenge in terms of collaborating, the tech, all of those sorts of things. So it's just about listening and then being really purposeful and action focused.
Mm.
I think for me, if you're working to common goals and you are benchmarked and measured against all the same, results or the same focus or values, I think that really helps. If you're all working to a common goal, then everybody's kind of motivated and incentivized to work towards the same things. I think it's where you see fractions is when people have got different objectives or different agendas, but everybody's working towards the same agenda. It just naturally happens that you're all working with the same purpose in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's honesty and shared ambition. If you've got those in buckets, you're probably going to be all right.
Well, excellent. Well, I wish I could speak to you guys much longer. It's been really helpful for me too in my work life, but thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you to everyone watching at home. I hope you've found this useful and interesting, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thanks to Brittaney and our second team of panelists.